Hey, I'm Cody Roos, and on this episode of Faith Family CFO, where we talk about faith, marriage, family, and entrepreneurship, and how to keep all four of those in that order, I want to tell you about the week that my wife and my daughter both told me that I wasn't giving them enough of myself. Let's get into it. So, very recently, I was working pretty late on some accounting projects. It was during tax season, and I remember my daughter coming in and asking me. I'd worked most of the day and it was getting late into the evening. I remember her asking me, she said, "Dad, when are you going to have time for me?" And then that hit me really hard. I thought about that, and I had recently started my accounting firm and started doing a lot of tax work. And I didn't really think much of it in my head. I justified it because I was doing work for my family. I was trying to support them. I was trying to put us in a better situation so that we didn't have to worry about finances and I could grow that. And eventually, I kept telling myself, eventually I'll cut back on work and eventually I'll hire people to help me out. And that eventually didn't come. And I was still in growth mode. And then about a week after that, my wife tells me that she doesn't feel like she's a priority. And so from that point forward, that hit me like a ton of bricks. So I had my daughter telling me that she feels like I don't give her enough time. And then I had my wife telling me that she doesn't feel like she's a priority. And so after that point, I knew something had to change. I just wasn't sure exactly how to change it because I spent the last few years growing the accounting firm and adding new services and doing what I felt like was the best possible thing for the client when my life at home was essentially becoming derailed because the people that love me and care about me the very most felt like they were being neglected. Now, by the end of this video, my hope for you is to be able to identify the signals of needing some change, needing to hopefully adjust your priorities so that your family comes before work, before any other outside activities. Because when you ask yourself the question, like, who loves me the most? Who cares about me the most in this life? I'd be shocked if it's anybody but your family. And so by the end of this video, my hope for you is to have some good strategies and some good maybe questions to ask yourself so that you can identify if maybe you're putting too much time into your entrepreneurial ventures and not enough time into family. Now, if you appreciate this kind of content, I would very much appreciate it if you would hit that like button and subscribe. Now, I started out my path to becoming an enrolled agent and doing all the accounting and tax services was a little non-traditional. I grew up on a dairy farm, and the idea of working with my hands and doing physical labor was kind of ingrained in me early. And so when I went to school for accounting and got my degree, and then I went to the financial services industry after getting my degree, I started out doing insurance. Then I added investments and financial planning and all of those types of things that came with that. Then I kept finding gaps in my overall value offering. And so I got my enrolled agent designation so that I could do tax representation. Then I thought, I'm doing taxes, I might as well do the bookkeeping. And then I thought, I'm doing the bookkeeping, I might as well do the payroll. And it just kind of snowballed. And so I kept pursuing the areas that I felt like would add more value to the people that I was serving. And ultimately, I felt like I was creating a pretty solid service. And I was never, in my opinion, a very good salesperson. But I felt that if my service was good enough or if I had enough of a value add, then I could attract clients without any sort of marketing. And so that's essentially what happened when I really started diving into taxes. I found that good quality tax help is pretty difficult to come by. Getting clients through tax services, and then on top of that, the accounting and the payroll, and then the advisory around that was a lot easier than doing any sort of marketing as an insurance agent or investment advisor. And in this day and age, I think that the demand for tax services, I guess, might be higher than investment advisory service. Everybody has to file a tax return or should file a tax return, and not everybody necessarily needs investment help. So maybe that's why, but that was my personal experience. In short, my entire career was about finding gaps in my overall skill set and trying to add onto those gaps and then to try to add value to the clients I was serving. And so it was basically like this never-ending path of I can learn this, I can learn that, to try to do more and do more for the people I was serving. The only issue in doing that is like you can always do more. You can always find something else to do and something else to add value. And so it was kind of like this circle that I was repeating over and over again. And at the time, I didn't realize the toll it was having on my family. So one of my goals when I was in college and then when I graduated college is I wanted the flexibility that entrepreneurship would bring. And then I also wanted to be able to work mostly from home. And basically, since I had graduated, I worked in positions that largely allowed me that flexibility and largely allowed me to work from home. And so I was blessed in a lot of regards to be able to do that. The only issue that I found was when I was doing that, I was like home all the time, but I wasn't really present. So I was there, but not really there. And so I found, like, especially with my kids, when my daughter was born, I remember it was great because I could help out like when my wife needed it, and I could be there to spend time with my daughter and watch her grow up. The only issue was I would be checking my phone while at the dinner table, or I would be getting emails while changing a diaper or something. And so it was one of those things where I was doing two things almost all the time. I was caring for my wife and my kids, but also working. So I was basically doing two different things poorly, or two different things in a mediocre way, rather than excelling at one and then going home and then excelling at the other. And so that was what I found was a huge drawback. And I didn't realize it until much later. It partially came from me asking questions, but my wife, she's usually very upfront and very forward with these things. Now, one thing I've learned working in accounting is if you are able to track something, you pay a lot closer attention to it. If you're not tracking things and you're not getting in the habit of deliberately making notes and checking in, there's a good chance that it's going to get lost in the busyness of life. So I actually put together two free tools for you guys to use. One is a work family balance questionnaire, and the other is actually a budgeting chart of accounts for your family. And so I use both of them. One is a helpful tool. The questionnaire is a helpful tool because it allows you to see where you might be lacking in spending time with your family, where you also might be lacking in spending time like focused on work. And so it allows you to like really differentiate like where you're spending your time and understand, like, are you giving work everything when you're working, and are you giving family everything when you're budgeting family time? And so that was a reality check for me, and those questions really helped me consider like what I'm doing in my own life and think about whether or not it's the best for my family and whether or not it's the best for my career path to be able to assist and help other people. And the second one, the chart of accounts, that is a tool that I use for actually a handful of clients of mine that allows me to not only keep track of all their 1040 activities, help you stay organized. It helps preparing your taxes. It would help tremendously because it's organized in a way where we have investments over here, anything related to investments, anything related to real estate. Let's say you have a Schedule C business, like sole proprietorship, anything related to that activity, anything related to charitable giving and itemized deductions. Like, it basically helps you not only fill out a living balance sheet of everything going on in your life and a profit and loss statement of everything going on in your life. You can even track grocery bills. You can track like medical expenses, discretionary expenses, vacations, like everything. And I enjoy that because not only it's like the greatest budgeting tool in the world, it's also a very good estate planning tool, because if something were to happen to you and somebody needed to see, like say your spouse or your brother or sister needed to see what you had or have, and they need to make decisions for your estate, like what better way than to hand them a QuickBooks General Ledger or QuickBooks Chart of Accounts with every account that you've ever dealt with, all neatly organized so they can pull your profit and loss, your balance sheet, like they can see your entire financial life in one place. The clients that I do use this for, it is awesome because I can see everything they're doing so that we can cover any potential for planning opportunity. We can cover any potential for charitable giving, potential for education planning, like literally every aspect of their financial lives we can run intentionally so that every dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out has a goal in mind. And so God spoke a lot in the Bible about being a good steward of the blessings that you're given, and not only for the blessings you're given, but also for like your family and all those people around you. And so I think part of us being a good steward is being able to track those things that allow us to make decisions that impact others in a positive way. And so I think that if we can adequately manage our resources and make good, strategic, informed decisions with those resources, only good things will come from doing that. And so those are the two resources that I want to provide for you so that you can reference and hopefully grow and hopefully see the value in them that I found, because I found that they're tremendously valuable. So again, we have the chart of accounts built for family budgeting, and it can be used for all sorts of other things. I mean, estate planning and more proactive financial planning to kind of get a snapshot of where your investments are and what your goals are and where you want to be. I mean, there's so many benefits to running your entire personal financial life like a business. Not that you have to run it like a business, but I mean, just having the ability to track those things all of a sudden shifts everything from being, hey, are we going to have enough money to pay all the bills this month, to I know exactly every dollar coming in and I have a really good idea of where we're going to go. So it forces you to be intentional. And then the other one, the work family balance questionnaire, that can be extremely helpful in the initial stages in determining whether or not you are giving your family the time they need and you're giving work and your entrepreneurial goals the attention that it needs in order to impact the lives of a lot of people. So we have a lot of benefits here. Those are the two resources that I'll throw at you guys to start, and we'll go from there. Now, I remember my daughter, when she asked me, Dad, when will you have some time for me? I remember it was in the middle of tax season. Granted, it is hard with tax season because I'm like really busy, and it's hard to like keep telling people no. But it was one of those situations where if I were to tell somebody no, I can't get their return done before April 15th. It's like, is that really so bad? I mean, a lot of these people, they didn't owe, or if they did owe, it was very minimal. And so it was one of those situations where they wanted to be just done and over with it by April 15th, but it really made no feasible difference, no economic difference for them, whether or not they filed by April 15th or whether or not they filed 6 months after that. So it's one of those things where my daughter was asking a perfectly valid question. She felt like I wasn't giving her like enough time and attention, and I was throwing myself into work to try to appease my clients for something that really had no strategic benefit. There was no added value other than the clients being able to say, hey, my tax return's already filed. Like, there was no economic benefit to me killing myself and working all these late nights to be able to do this for them, when the one that really appreciates my time and my availability, my daughter, was really craving that time and attention. And so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you do have to work some, like work has to be a priority at some point. And the clients, the people that you're helping, that are trusting you to do whatever you do for them, they're going to depend on you to some extent. You want to be God's light for those people and do a good job for those people. But it was one of those situations where you have to weigh, are you neglecting the ones that are like closest to you in order to help those that they may appreciate you and they may like really love what you're doing, but you can still do that for them while also having a good family life balance. And so I think that's the biggest priority. Is I was over here like, I just need to do more tax returns. I need to take on like more bookkeeping clients and see if I can get into tax resolution, because I hear you can make a lot of money at tax resolution. And so like I had all these things that were coming my way, and I just thought to myself at that time, I'm like, is it really worth it? Is it worth it to make more money and to chase more income when my daughter's feeling this way? And then like a week later, my wife comes to me and she says, I just feel like you're not prioritizing me. And so I had multiple polls from both sides. And I said, I feel like I'm not doing something right if the people that I'm supposed to be loving the most and being there for the most are telling me this. And so this was a shock to me. And it just changed my perception of, I need to make more money because I love my family so much. I need to increase my income so that I can afford them more opportunity, and we can go on more grand adventures, and we can go see and do more things. But it was one of those things where when I sat down with my kids and I asked them like, hey, would you guys rather like go on a big long trip and stay at like the beach in a house or something, an Airbnb, or would you rather go do a grand adventure on a big vacation somewhere in a hotel and spend a couple nights, or would you rather me a couple times a week be able to take you to the park and run around and play with you guys actively? They would opt for the park. They wanted me there. And so it was more important for them to have me available and there to play with them than for us to save up and take a big grand vacation once a year. They would much rather have me present throughout the year than taking a big grand vacation once a year. And so it's one of those things where it is a balance, and a lot of times it's involving your wife and your kids in these big decisions. But for me, and we take occasional big trips, and I know I have some very fond memories of when I was a kid, going on boat trips and going on road trips. And I used to race dirt bikes when I was younger, and doing those dirt bike races I have very fond memories of, although I don't ride dirt bikes anymore. Too many injuries later, and once I started having kids, it just wanted to be there for the long haul, and having too many plates in my body wouldn't go over very well, I'm sure. I thought I was loving my family by making more money and putting us in a position to buy more things or do more things. And at the end of the day, I came to the realization that our lives are not measured by like how much we make. Rather, it's measured by the love and the support that we show others. And so ultimately, why this channel exists and why I'm doing what I'm doing despite having very little public speaking experience. My hope is that with this channel, I can take the talents that God has blessed me with, and the curiosity and the skill set that I've been blessed with, and I can hopefully bless somebody else, another family. So this whole channel and the purpose of these videos are to take what I've learned through doing insurance and investments and financial planning, taxes and payroll and all accounting, all that stuff, and all my practical family life experiences, and combine them in a way that you can benefit from them with your family and your work, and so that your finances are not a stressing point in marriage. It just blows me away that one of the biggest issues in marriage tends to be finances. And it's kind of funny, when my wife and I were going through our marriage prep courses in Corvallis, we had a phenomenal sponsor couple, Jack and Joe. Joe is short for, I believe, Josephine. But they were wonderful, really, really kind-hearted people. And I remember taking like this really long questionnaire, and it was basically a questionnaire to try to determine if there are friction points in your preparation for marriage, whether or not marriage is truly a vocation that you wanted to pursue. And it was really well done, and it brought up some really good points. And my wife and I, we had and currently have our fair share of like issues and conflicts and challenges, but the way the questions were worded, it was very challenging to get 100% because they were worded in ways that there was a lot of subjectivity to it, and there was a lot of varying opinions and differences. But I remember we were fully 100% aligned, and it was the first time that our sponsor couple, it's the first time they'd been doing a sponsorship of couples for like years and years, and they said it was the first time they ever had a couple that got 100% on any category. And I remember that category was finances, and it cracks me up because my wife's like whole take on finances from basically early on in our relationship to even now in our marriage was, you're going to school for accounting. She's like, I'll just let you handle all that accounting stuff, and I'll trust that you have it under control. Now, she was like, you can just take the wheel and we'll call it good. But I said, I'm going to involve you a little more in what we're doing so that at least you're aware of like where I'm taking this ship in terms of finances. And so far, I mean, it's been overall very successful, I'd say, in terms of managing finances. And I hope to share some of the strategies that we utilize and how they've really helped my wife and I benefit from a financial standpoint, and understanding that every dollar that comes in has a purpose. We have to have a very intentional purpose behind what we're spending. And I'll cover that. I think there's a lot of good budgeting strategies out there. Minimizing debt, I know Dave Ramsey touches on a lot, and I know there's a lot of bad debt out there. Buying a brand new car when it stresses your budget is one of the most, that's probably what I saw the most that puts people in a challenging financial situation, is when they buy a vehicle that eats up so much of their potentially disposable income. And we can touch on basically the logistics around why buying a vehicle, unless you have like sufficient income to justify it, or just buy it in cash. I mean, that solves a lot of the problems right there. But why buying a vehicle can be one of the most strenuous decisions that you make in terms of healthy financials. We can definitely dig into the details on that more. We'll dive really far into the details on a lot of different subjects in later episodes, but this is just the overall intro of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Essentially, I have this whole host of skills and areas that are fairly pertinent to financial planning and overall finances. And my goal is share what I'm doing and what I've learned, and hopefully be able to bring some of those strategies, some of that mindset to you so that you can implement a lot of these strategies in your own life so that you can not only succeed in your entrepreneurial ventures, but you can also succeed in your family life. And so that is ultimately why this was created, because I think too often finances leads to stress on marriage. I think that entrepreneurship is an awesome path for just about anybody, and I'm a huge advocate for anybody that like has an idea or has a skill or has a passion even that they want to try to like monetize and try to add value to others in a way that doesn't feel like work. Because I think that at the end of the day, the flexibility that entrepreneurship brings you, along with the opportunity for your kids to learn about what you do, your kids to learn about business. I mean, there's so many lessons to be had running your own business. And so ultimately, this whole channel is about strengthening families, strengthening marriage, and encouraging entrepreneurship. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or whether you're currently running your own business, I want to create resources that are extremely relevant to you so that you can succeed in everything that is most important to you. And so I figure I will share everything that I know in terms of accounting, what has worked, what hasn't worked. And if I can be a resource to you, feel free to comment on this video and I will answer any questions you might have. I'm an open book when it comes to this stuff. And so ultimately I want to take the knowledge that I've gathered over the years and try to help another family. Even if I'm able to help just one other person, that will be totally worth it, because I think that there's too much strain on marriages. There's too much strain on family in America today, and I guess in the world for that matter. And I think that it's a wonderful idea to take a step back and to consider some of the most pertinent questions when it comes to your family and your work balance, and also consider what are some of the strategies that you can implement at work that will either free up your time, save you money, and have proper accounting so you don't get into trouble. We all make mistakes. We're all human. We just try to do our best to correct those mistakes. I mean, if you search my name, you'll find there was an issue that I had with FINRA. Long story short, I basically inherited or took over a book of business at a credit union when I was doing financial advisory stuff. And there were 300 client accounts that all went to a no advisor state because the last advisor prior to me coming on had retired. And when I took over as the advisor, there was too much time that had passed. So instead of basically signing it's like a 1 or 2 page document to transfer all of the 300 plus clients over into me as the head advisor, I had to repaper all 300 plus accounts. So basically I just had to approach these clients, get them to sign applications that they've already signed and say, hey, sorry, this is just what we got to do because there's a new advisor. And long story short, there were a handful of clients that for one reason or another weren't able to meet with me in a terribly timely fashion. And they either said, well, can you just e-sign mine for me? I understand what you're trying to do. A lot of them just said, you sign it, don't worry about it. And I did it. I signed a handful of e-signatures for people. And at the end of the day, I learned the hard way why I shouldn't be doing that. And even though nothing I did there with any sort of fraudulent intent, but it was one of those things where the IP address didn't match the IP address of the client. And when push came to shove, it was about 2 years of deciphering what happened and coming to some conclusion with FINRA. So either way, it was one of those things where you live and you learn. I think it is as inconvenient as it can be. I don't have people e-sign, or I don't e-sign on behalf of other people any longer because it just leads to all sorts of challenges. So if your work involves e-signature, just be aware of the potential pitfalls with that. I learned the hard way that can run you down a path of all sorts of headache. Anyway, that is water under the bridge at this point. But if you have more questions about that, if you happen to work in financial services, I'm definitely happy to share my own experiences in more detail with regard to that investigation and findings with use around DocuSign. So with all this in mind, my goal ultimately is to keep God at the center of your life, because I think if you have faith and you have God right at the center, I don't think there's very much that can go wrong. And a lot of times I don't think that pushing to make more money at the expense of your family is what God would be wanting us to do. In my next video, I'm going to be talking a lot about the conversations that you can have with your spouse in deciphering whether entrepreneurship entrepreneurship is the correct path for you and your family. And then also, if you are already a business owner and pursuing this entrepreneurial life, what questions you can have to talk with your wife to hopefully get on the same page, so there's no turbulence or conflict when it comes to running that business, and different ways that you can support each other in that venture. And so a lot of excitement to come. I'm excited to go through this whole process with you guys. And again, if there's anything that I can do to try to help you in terms of planning and giving you ideas and hopefully inspiring you to be there for your family, to keep faith at the center, and to live every day at the fullest. And I'll leave you with this: God bless you and your family all the time.